Alright, hello everyone, it is me BaRKy, and welcome to Rimworld, You Suck. This is the new series that I'll be doing based on something that I've watched from Purge, another YouTuber who does a lot of Dota stuff, and I thought it's such a cool idea to kind of get into the basics in Rimworld and kind of explore everything in a decent amount of depth that can be interpreted by newbies. And that's the important thing, that newbies can take this and it'll be useful to them. So if you aren't a newbie, then this probably is not the video for you, unfortunately. Disappointed! But yeah, so that's what this will be, and there will be quite a few of them in the future, so please just keep that in mind. So welcome to Rimworld, the game that you've probably heard so much about. You're probably in a bit of awe because of the Steam reviews. You may have seen your favorite YouTubers playing it, #BaRKy, or maybe it just got recommended to you on Steam and it looked like something you'd enjoy, which if you're watching this video, you're probably right. Whatever the case, the game can be incredibly daunting to get into with good reason. I spent several hours at the start of the game either dying to mad animals or constantly hunting because I had no idea how to create a freezer. So all my food just kind of kept disappearing constantly, which kind of happens in real life now that I think about it. So before we continue, please just keep in mind that this is a video for newbies again. I don't really want to bait people into watching this video. And yeah, so you won't hear me say don't watch my stuff often, but this is definitely one of those cases. In the first episode, I'll be covering the first 10 or so minutes of the game, roughly, and what it entails. In the series, I'll be covering every facet of the early game and the basics. So in this one, I'll be doing a general overview of everything that I will be covering, while every episode from this point onwards will be an in-depth discussion of every basic in the game. And it's a good thing to kind of try and master the basics before moving on anyways. Rimworld can be incredibly in-depth, but it's still a ton of fun. Alright, so you open up Rimworld for the first time in your life, you have no idea what you're doing, but you know that this game is gonna be awesome. So first off, when starting a new game, you'll get a scenario selection. So you go over here, you click on New Colony, and it says Choose Scenario, and you have these three to choose from. I highly recommend just sticking with the first one, Crash Landed, until you feel you're proficient with the game. That could take a playthrough or two to your death, I suppose, but it'll teach you the basic grasp of the game. Just keep in mind that for some people, Tribal's a lot more easier and more fun than Crash Landed. Your experience will vary though, so just keep that in mind. I would almost never start out with one rich explorer though. This can be fun, but unfortunately with one person you can't heal yourself. And you do get a wanderer later in the game, but we'll get into that later. But I would recommend just Crash Landed, and if you really want to, just play Lost Tribe. So after that, you can click on Next, and it'll bring up the AI Storyteller. In the current vanilla game, there's currently 3 storytellers. You have Cassandra Classic, you have Phoebe Chillax, and you have Randy Random. Cassandra Classic is the most classic storyteller in that she'll pretty much send you a raid every few minutes, and she'll steadily increase the difficulty as the game progresses, which includes events and other stuff like that, which we'll get into later. But just know with her that the difficulty is scaled linearly, so you may get a blight and a raid at the same time, but rarely. After that, you have Phoebe Chillax, who's very similar to Cassandra, except that the rest period between events is quite a bit longer. This is probably the easiest storyteller in my opinion, as you have the most time to prepare between raids. She can still be a bitch later though. Seriously. But all of these people can be a bitch later, but especially this prick. Finally is the infamous Randy Random. Randy Random can be the easiest storyteller or the hardest, and I'll tell you now, it is never the easiest. Randy Random has no filter on events. They can be anything in any numbers. You might get 3 raids within a few minutes, and it has happened to me. If you've ever watched my stream, I've had so many manhunting Boomerlo packs in like the space of 3 minutes. Alright, so next up you have the world and the seed that generates the world. This is interesting. If you've ever played Minecraft, you probably know exactly how worlds work, in that they are generated based on a lot of math, I suppose. You can choose rainfall and temperature, and that affects the climate that you'll be in. Obviously, you don't want to, you just leave it as average for the first time you play. It's probably for the best, and just go ahead and generate your world. Alright, so we've generated our world, and in Rimworld, difficulty can be set by simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Your world, and by the extension, your map, is almost a selection of difficulty in a sense. Every biome is different in its own way, and you can most definitely go from mundane to extreme. Like, if I wanted to go right to the top, nothing can ever grow here. You'll never see animals, or at least you won't see animals in the winter. But if I go down here, it can grow all the time. And you can see the temperature differences over here. If I wanted to go to... I don't think we can find any extreme desert. You get pretty extreme temperatures and climates, and that affects the difficulty a lot more than you think. Having a year-round growing time makes the game a lot easier than 30 days. There's 40 days, 30 days. You can get less and less as you go up. So you can see 20 days. Stuff like that. And then at the top, you can see the biomes. That's tundra. This is temperate forest, tropical rainforest, arid shrubland. Down here, we have desert. Up here, this is sea ice and ice sheet. Obviously, most people would agree that sea ice is the hardest difficulty, as there is nothing on the map. Effectively, nothing. So, but don't be fooled into thinking that rainforest is easy, because disease is a bitch here. But I'll go into every single biome eventually. But for now, just choose temperate forest. It's generally one of the better ones for starting out. This is what I would consider the average Rimworld map. But definitely what you should be looking for are the growing times. So pick a place that gives you about 30 days. 30 to 40 days I think is pretty good. If you choose 20, prepare to have a bit of a tougher time if you're a newbie. But you know, go for the challenge if you want to, man. It's your playthrough. Alright, so once you've done all of that, we get to probably the most important part about the first 10 minutes of Rimworld. That is the colonists themselves. Colonists are divided into 4 major things that define them as colonists. First of all, you have their skills. This is how good they are at something currently. Emphasis on the currently because skills can improve or degrade in vanilla Rimworld. A lot of people don't think they can degrade, but they actually can above level 10. So just keep that in mind. The second major thing are their traits. As you can see, you have big words saying traits over here, and you can see beautiful, psychically dull, etc. This is what makes your colonist who they are. You may have a colonist with level 20 shooting, but what good is he if he's a pyromaniac, slothful, and can't haul? Oh my goodness, I actually got really sad just thinking about it. The third thing that defines your colonists are the health tab and the relations tab. The colonist pre-game health is very, very important. That even if I random a colonist quickly here, you can see torso frail, right? If I hover over it, you can see it's moving negative 30%, manipulation negative 30%. That is a huge debuff. Really, that's such a disability. It can really screw up your entire game. You know, she has hard worker and aesthetic. It is not worth that. I'm sorry. I love old people, but I just can't. But seriously, if you choose to take an 87-year-old who's suffering from a bad back and 2 cataracts because she happened to be an amazing sewer, don't get annoyed at the game, get annoyed at yourself. It's important to realize how important health is and how it's related to age in the game. Colonists do indeed age, and with age comes negatives. As colonists get older, they get worse traits. A heart attack becomes more likely, a bad back is more likely to be earned, etc. Always keep an eye out for something incurable or not easily treatable, as it may come back to bite you like this. But more than this, especially things like alcohol addiction, which gives you a negative 35 debuff if you don't satiate it. A negative 35 debuff can be colony ruining. That could be the difference between having a mental break and being okay during a raid. And finally, you have the 4th major thing about colonists, and that's their backstory, which you can find over here. You may have an amazing colonist, perfect health, etc, etc, that you want to keep, but because of a certain backstory, they may be unable to be a doctor, or a dumb laborer, or a skilled laborer, etc, etc. It's important to look at backstories and capabilities to ensure you don't screw yourself over early game. I'm not saying that you need to spend hours randoming colonists to get your perfect pick, although I know people. But don't pick 3 colonists incapable of doctoring and dumb labor. You're asking for a bad time, and I know because I've done this so many times before. So what I personally look for in colonists is generally in the order of the major things I list, which is skills, and then traits, and then the rest. More importantly than skills, I look for passions, and you can tell if a colonist has passion by looking at this little flame next to the skill number, or the skill level, sorry. If it has 1 little ember, that means that you learn it at 100%. What that means is that you learn a skill 3 times faster than one without a passion. So just imagine that it's a pretty deal. If you have 2 embers, or the burning passion, it learns it at 150%. That's a pretty freaking major deal. That's like 5 times faster than a normal skill. It does cap out on how much you can learn per day. You can't just learn consistently, but it's still pretty freaking major, especially if you have a grower or a cook. So I've divided up what I look for in colonists into tiers. Now, the tiers are my own personal ones. They may be different for you. These are not the best for every climate and map, etc. So just keep that in mind. I will say that a lot. I know people are going to bring it up quite a bit, which is okay. Good. I like that you bring it up, but I'm just saying that that's what's going to happen. So tier 1 being colonists with burning passion for the skill, and tier 3 being least important, not important at all to have passion for. You can see the passion by looking over here, obviously. So I have tier 1, shooting, medicine, cooking, and growing. I think those are 4 very, very important things, especially for the average climate and crash landed scenario, which is temperate forest, by the way. Tier 2, I have animals, construction, mining, and crafting. And then tier 3, I have research, social, artistic, and melee. A lot of people think that animals should not be in tier 2, but I disagree. I think animals are amazing in this game and definitely underused. And I'm speaking as someone who underuses them, so just keep that in mind. But for sure, some of these can be switched around depending on what map you're on. For example, on Ice Sheet, it's generally more important to have research at a higher tier, while growing can be put lower. This is for what I would consider the most typical Rimworld map. The Goldilocks climate, in a sense that there's a growing season for at least 30 days and summer is above 0 degrees Celsius or 32 Fahrenheit. So right off the bat, there is an early scramble. As you click on start game, it'll put you in the world and you'll have a bit of time to pause before your colonists land. Right here, I click pause. I'll unpause just so you can see the drop pods in midair. And what I generally do is I select all of these and I allow everything in the nearby area, which is quite a bit of stuff. You get a lot of steel. Like you can see straight away how much steel we have just from being right here, which is awesome. I generally pause as soon as I'm in and just survey the map where I'd like to make my first base. You generally want an easily defendable location with a decent chunk of growing area with room to expand. Having a steam geyser like over here and here is always pretty good. It's not a necessity immediately though, so don't take this as having something as being something that's incredibly important. It is important, but generally it's okay to not build your base right next. But just remember that geothermal energy late game is an endless supply of free energy, so just keep that in mind. So immediately at the start of the game, you'll notice you have some materials. There are lots of extra materials scattered along the map, but in your immediate vicinity, you'll start with 800 silver, 30 packaged survival meals, 24 medicine, 30 components, a survival rifle, a pistol, a plasteel knife, 1 random pet, 450 steel and 300 wood, which we can see over here as they land. And there's all your stuff on the floor. Just equip. People like this. Okay, he's a brawler, so let's not do that. So what I generally do is I take the best hunter and I give him the pistol. Then I take the second best hunter, or not hunter, but shooter, and give him the survival rifle. And then if I have a brawler, he'll take the melee. That's just how it is. It's not worth the debuff, don't risk it. As you can see, we have the 30 components, we have the 30 survival meals, we have the 800 silver, we have the 24 medicine, and we have the guns, which is pretty cool. And then the wood is spread over here, you have the 300 there, and we have the steel over there. So yeah, just keep in mind that the silver is a building material, so you might be tempted to look at structure and see silver. You can make a silver wall, but just keep in mind that it's more of a currency in this game than anything else, so you should probably not use it that way. The 30 packaged survival meals are great. Your colonists need to eat constantly, and this will get you through a few days. I'd say probably about 4 or 5 days. They don't expire, so luckily temperature doesn't affect their degradation if you understand how the temperature in this game works. If you don't, I will get into it later, don't worry. But they do degrade under non-roofed areas. A lot of things in the game do, so just keep that in mind that you want to roof it straight away. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you go watch my stockpiles video, because it'll help you with this kind of stuff. The 24 medicine is great. It's really amazing. This should last you several weeks in game unless you're incredibly unlucky. You might be playing in a place where you get diseases more often, and that might screw you over, or if you get raided very quickly. But at the start of the game, I assume you're just playing base build or rough, so it should get you through quite a few weeks, I'd say. Yeah, medicine simply helps your colonists treat their wounds better, but don't fear if you don't have as many flesh wounds, because they can still be bandaged up even without medicine. It'll just be at a lower quality, but you do risk infection, so just keep that in mind, that if you don't bandage something up properly, it can get infected. The 30 components are great. In Rimworld, any piece of machinery requires components to be built. Generally, you can kind of assume it requires components if it requires power. So if I go into production and I put on an electric stove, You can see right there, 2 components, 80 steel. And it does require electricity. Pretty interesting. As you can see, an electrically powered stove. Just for the record, components also required for breakdown. So in the game, things break down randomly at times, and you need components to repair them. So don't waste them. Always have a few on hand, just in case. And then finally, you have 3 weapons, a survival rifle, a pistol, and a knife. I already explained what I do with them. But yeah, give them to your best shots. Just remember that when hunting, colonists can shoot each other by accident. So I usually give my best hunter the pistol so that they go closest to the animals. As for actual building materials, you have 450 steel and 300 wood. Keep in mind that both of these are flammable, so it doesn't matter what you make your base out of, they can still burn to the ground. You need to use stone, like this stone chunks, over here, limestone, etc, etc, to make a base that is not flammable. Both steel and wood is flammable. I can't tell you guys enough. It's something I've messed up with that countless times. So what I recommend for the start of the game is to build your starting rooms out of wood, like this. Make them nice, compact rooms, just the way they like it. And saving the steel, if you can, as well as your beds out of wood. You should have about enough for this. After that, you start with one random pet, which you can go into the animals tab and take a look. We got a warg, which is amazing. But yeah, if you're lucky, this can be a husky or a warg, or even a freaking elephant I've seen before. Or like animals along those lines. If you're unlucky, you get a Yorkshire Terrier, who are seemingly cute and useless, kind of like me. Also along the map, there's another 720 steel, another 7 packaged survival meals, and 3 ship chunks. Be sure to deconstruct them straight away if you can. Take a look, see if I can find one straight away. Ship chunks are great because they give you 30 steel. Here's some more steel. That's a lot of steel actually. Over here. Cool, so you get 8 components and 30 steel out of each of these, which is amazing. Once you're in this game, once you're in this part of the game, you are actually okay. You've gotten over one of the more complex part of the game, which is choosing a world. After this, you want to set up a growing zone, which can be almost 10 by 10, which is fine. I made that wrong because I'm an idiot. 10 by 10, set one to potatoes, and set a smaller one to rice, and that should be okay. Potatoes are the middle ground in the game. Corn takes the longest to grow, but it gives you the most. And rice is the fastest to grow, but it gives you the least. There are also other things to grow, but those are the more medium done foods. They're more like commonly seen. You also need to get a heel root growing. You need to get a heel root growing zone set up. Those are the 3 most important things. But generally go heel root. If you need a grower with a decent skill for that. Just by the way, you can see the levels required over here. As you can see, I don't have enough for that. Corn and rice. There we go. As you can see, they're just busy chopping some wood so that this can all be built. You have quite a bit of time for your first day to set the rooms up. I would always recommend not setting up a super complex base in planning mode first, and just getting the rooms done before you do anything else. Because things can take time, really, and your colonists don't always do what you expect them to do or what you want to do. So that's it. I would also recommend setting up a 4th growing zone and just setting that to cotton, which you can change later to devil strand if you'd like to. There we go. I was looking for that for too long, honestly. There we go. 4 growing zones. One is going to get me food reasonably quickly, which will last until the second one brings me a big chunk of food. Heel root is always good to have. It's incredibly useful. And then finally you have cotton, which allows you to make clothes when the stuff starts to wear out, which you can check over here by clicking on the gear tab, taking a look at what they're wearing. It will have percentages about how much HP each piece of clothing has left, how much it's degraded and stuff like that. Really nice. None of these guys are growing. Alright, that's pretty much it. That is basically the first 10 minutes of you owning the game. you pretty much just get your normal base set up, stuff like that. Once you're in, you can put down your stockpiles, your growing zones, etc, etc. Yeah, I will have an episode 2 coming up, which will detail exactly what you do after this, which is setting up the rest of your base, setting up your defenses, probably having a decent set of walls, etc, etc. I think it'll be pretty cool. I just want to say that this is the first episode of a new series that I will be doing. I will be aiming to get about between 10 and 20 episodes out, depending on how many topics I decide to do and how long I want to make each video, which I'm assuming is going to be about 10 minutes each, hopefully. But I don't want to just speak like this and just waste time. You know? But yeah, tell me what you think about the series, if you think it's a good idea or a bad idea. I saw we hit 1,500 subscribers. That is amazing. Yeah, have an amazing day. Thank you very much for spending your time watching. Bye bye. Hey you, thank you very much for making it to the end of my video. You've actually proved yourself to be above the average. Above the average. Because the average watch time of my video is 63%. But that's okay, because 63% is exactly how much you need to get a message across. And funnily enough, you only need to watch about 60% of this message to get what I'm making it for. Anyways, I've decided to open up a Patreon. If you'd like to support me, besides in the amazing ways that all of my awesome subs already usually do, then you can head over to the link in the description to check it out. All your support is appreciated, monetarily or not. If you're a subscriber, then be sure to hit the little bell over here to always be up to date with videos I push out, and head over to the Discord if you ever want to have a deep and meaningful chat with me. And last but not least, I hope you're having an amazing day.